Hi everyone, I'm James, Deputy Chair of Insurtech UK, and I'm here for a fireside chat with Ian Simons from the CII. He heads up their marketing team there, and I'm excited to ask him a few questions about their partnership as an associate partner with Insurtech UK going forward. Ian, firstly, for those who don't know, and I would be surprised if anyone that didn't, tell us a little bit about the CII, its heritage and the journey it's been on recently with Sean, obviously at the helm.
Yeah. Well, first off, CII stands for Chartered Insurance Institute. There are also confederations of industry in India and various other things that we get confused with, but we're the chartered body for insurance and personal finance in the UK. We're not a trade body. We don't look after the interests of companies. We look after, strictly speaking, a commitment to a royal charter signed just over 100 years ago to preserve and secure the trust in insurance amongst the public, which is quite a big commitment and not one that many people would think when you think of a professional body. It's all about exams, etc. Of course, that's a big part of it. You can't trust something that wants to be a profession if you can't see evidence that the people are competent and knowledgeable to do what they're doing. But also, if you rely just on qualifications, you could get a banking crisis, etc. And there's it wasn't a limit to the number of qualifications that people had that led to the credit crisis or any other crises that have happened. What's happened since then is a much bigger focus on customer outcomes, ethics, and culture, which is one of the things that a professional body needs to invest in. So as a member of the CII, it's not just using a designation that says, oh yes, I passed an exam 15 years ago, whatever. It's about being part of a community that's developing standards, looking at issues that are going to detract from that potential public trust. So we've had all of the work on dual pricing coming up. You need to be involved in and aware of that and understanding what your part is, whether you're right at the coalface of providing pricing or part of the customer journey. What are we doing as individuals, as professionals, in addressing those things that do detract from public trust? Because that's really what a professional is about. We all have in our minds a clear picture of what a professional is in, say, medicine, and we know that they sign a Hippocratic oath, and we know that they treat the patient, they don't just provide a cure. We've got to have that same code of ethics, which is something we provide within the insurance sector.
Fantastic. I mean, I personally am a member of the CII for those watching as well, to avoid any conflicts. And I completely agree with you about the cultural fit and the professionalism element. It's always really fed through very well. So, I was delighted when you guys, helped the Insurtech UK effort and have effectively joined us as a partner. Tell me a little bit about why. Why are you supporting it? I mean, I can hear a few of the hallmarks in what you've already said, which would ring true. Obviously, we're the new kids on the block, like fintech in banking.
Yeah.
But what other elements are you really focused on in terms of getting benefits from the CII and adding value to Insurtech UK and all?
Yeah, it's very much a two-way street that I see it. We, as a professional body, undertake to look after the whole insurance and personal finance sector, and it would be completely remiss of us to go, oh, well, that looks a bit complicated or new, let's ignore that until it's settled or something like that, because we have to stay relevant. We have to be looking from the consumer's point of view at what is driving public trust. And if there is new technology, new practice, etc., that could potentially erode that, we have to be working with those who are seeking the right outcomes, develop that good practice, socialise that, build it in wherever possible to guidance that we can provide to members. As I said, it's not all down to exams and qualifications, but I'm keen to learn what the journey is for someone either starting off in Insurtech or someone who's already established, moving into the sector from a different sector. What's the core common content or knowledge that you need to operate within the insurance sector, recognising you'll have a lot of specialism that might be technology-led, it might not be, it might be sector-led or whatever. It's getting that balance between the two, always coming back to that common thread of what's the customer outcome and how do you fit within the overall ecosystem. So what we want from the CII is that we have a relationship where we can learn from your members as to what are the issues that are coming up, work with them to develop, whether it's guidance, whether it's communities that directly set standards for those. So you and I were both part of a digital ethics forum over the last 6 months or so, developing some high-level principles around what are the the ethical dilemmas that you might need to look into that might be brought ahead by technology and changes to procedures around all aspects of insurance. We want to be doing more of that sort of stuff and going into more detail, because it's great setting principles, but it's no good when people look at it and go, yeah, it's kind of motherhood and apple pie. Of course we wouldn't seek to unfairly penalise one customer over another, etc. But when it comes down to some of the real test cases that we started to get into, that evolves on a daily basis, and we need to make it real for people. We need to keep it live and forward focused. We can't set a code of ethics, for example, and go, right, that's done, let's move on. That will evolve every day, and we need to keep it alive. And that's something that, as I say, it's a two-way street. We need feedback in to say, here's something coming over the hill we need to be addressing. We need to be doing this in partnership. As I say, the CII isn't there to dictate a standard or to say, this is right, that's wrong, or anything. We're a community, and we've got to get people involved in that community that have a shared interest in setting a standard that is achieving that common good.
Fantastic. I mean, I think there's the tech in the disruption world is riddled with cautionary tales where perhaps ethics and standards haven't been considered enough. I mean, there's a big advertiser at the moment that you see everywhere with blue ads. We won't name them for the purpose of the video, but I think that's a really important aspect for our members. And of course, trust is different, isn't it? When you've got so much mistrust for incumbents, as people in banking have had and have flocked to the new banks, the same is going to work for Insurtech, but obviously you want them to be meeting someone that's got these kind of professional standards. So, I'm sure our members will very much engage with that, because whilst they're very good at the disruption and the tech and the engagement in the product, there's always more you can learn your trade and your professional qualities. So you alluded a little bit to how you've already engaged with Insurtech, because of course we're a relatively new body. Insurtech was around, a little bit before we galvanised in an association. Besides the ethics, is there anything else that has been on the radar of the CII that you guys have particularly done any work with or been focused on?
Well, one of the things that we've done also in an associated space is we've developed a relationship with the Managing General Agents Association, and we are launching soon. It's quite complex working with the Privy Council to launch a new charter title, but a new charter title for chartered insurance underwriting agents. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's intended to be inclusive of all of the professionals who could be not quite in any of the other boxes. So we've always had charter titles. I'm currently a chartered insurance practitioner because I'm no longer employed by an insurance company, but for a long time I was employed by an insurance company as a professional, so I was a chartered insurer. And you end up with this sort of soup of different titles, which is not ideal when you're trying to get clarity for consumers, but also you get people who go, well, I don't really fit into any of those. So we said, well, let's actually look at both the growth of managing general agents, also the technology sector that sits around that, because many members of Insurtech UK will either be MGAs in their own right, or will be a core part of that ecosystem. So I'm hopeful that as we develop that, there'll be a route to professionalism under that guise. So that'll be coming out relatively soon, and we'll be developing more content in the framework to support that. We already have an online learning portal specifically for managing general agents called MGA Assess. That's useful for employers to be able to provide it. So it's not about taking exams. It's about, we all have, certainly those of us who work for organisations that invest in learning, usually a learning portal of some kind. It can be white labelled into that, or it can be delivered separately, but it gives people that core framework of knowledge that you need to be able to have, obviously then supplemented by whatever technical or organisational training that organisations have to provide. But yeah, there's a lot more that we could be doing, because it's got to be, we see Insurtech not just as, it's not the great new hope or anything, but it clearly cutting new material and stretching boundaries. We've got to be involved in that, and also reflecting on it to try and make sure that those who aren't perhaps directly involved in the Insurtech sector know what's going on and know how they may be interfacing with it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And Insurtech certainly shouldn't and doesn't want to be the tail that wags the dog on professionalism, of course, and it needs to embody what's come before it, I think, and take the best bits forward with the tech. So I think that really fits nicely. Excited to hear about the MGAA plans. Do keep us informed. We've got a few members of Insurtech UK who are also MGAA members. So I guess let's get to blue skies, future horizons. What's key on your agenda for working with us? What sort of ideas have you got? I know that you're brimming with them all the time. So can you give us any tidbits of things that we can look to expect from the CII and the Insurtech UK relationship in the future?
Yeah, so another thing we're doing is we've launched almost exactly a year ago the first of our new societies. So the Society of Insurance Broking was launched a year ago. But we've also since then launched the Society of Claims Professionals, and soon we'll be launching the Society of Underwriting. And I'm keen to see how each of those, because that's where we've really got the, if you separate it slightly simplification with qualifications and learning on one side, and then you've got community standards, good practice, etc., that's developed with and for members. That's what the societies are largely there for. So I'm keen that we explore with you where we can get the right agenda of issues that are coming up for your members that could be reflected on within the societies, and also to be developing some of that good practice. As I said, the work that we did to just scrape away the top of the code of ethics that we already have and say, how does this apply in a digital world, leaves loads of future opportunities. And we want to go into a bit of depth on the key issues, but it's not for us to decide what are the key issues. You know, I mentioned dual pricing earlier. Yeah, that's maybe not a technology issue, but it's certainly one where there are elements. We could pick any issue there and go into lots of depth, and we can also then, certainly when it's via a society approach, look at where it might drive policy. So if these are things, as I said, we're not a trade body, we don't lobby on behalf of companies, but we do influence on behalf of good customer outcomes, whether that's in partnership with regulation, whether it's alongside trade bodies. There's nothing wrong with lobbying, it's just not what a professional body does. But if there are issues that we think need to be resolved across a whole sector, we can help give voice to that. But we can only do that if we're having that two-way dialogue where we say, have we agreed what the key issues are? Have we agreed what good looks like and why that's good? It's not good for any one group or any one type of organisation. Ultimately, we should be able to point at the customer as a whole and say, this leads to good customer outcomes, and this other practice might not do, so we're recommending this approach. Sometimes that's something we can just go, fine, we're all going to take that approach. Sometimes we need other people to do that. It might be there are regulations that are stopping us doing the right things, or at least not making it easy. You know, that's where we can start to do things collaboratively to make change.
Fantastic. Well, in the name of collaboration, I very much encourage and hope that the Insurtech UK members contact you guys and start to share ideas and ideas and concepts on professionalism and all the cultural aspects that you've explored now. And on behalf of the membership as well, I'd like to thank the CII as well on the record for supporting this nascent organisation. It is, as you've said, a broad church of companies. We've got distribution companies and people up the supply chain, and professionalism should be, inking through that whole structure like a DNA. So thank you, Ian, for your time.
Thank you
and
very
thank you,
much,
everyone, for watching as well. I hope you get some value out of this, and there'll be more fireside chats with other partners coming in the future. Thanks very much.